So we're going to be covering views, and we're going to be creating a couple different views, and then you'll learn how to update them and modify the structure. Views are great for any kind of select that you want to run more than once. They're also very useful to database administrators because you can select exactly what data a user can view or see. You can also select the data that a user can update. And the first two views that we're going to create are very similar. The difference is that one has more update capabilities than the other. So I'm going to pause this while I enter the views, and then we'll go through what they do. All right, I've already entered task 1, and we are going to be creating views for the invoices and vendors tables. So basically, we are going to join the two tables on the vendor ID, and we're pulling the vendor name from the vendor table, and we're pulling invoice number, date, and total from our invoices table. And the selects are very similar. In fact, they're identical until you get down to with check option. We have with check option in our limited view. And basically what that does is it only allows you to update rows you can see. So the first view, which is updatable, we can update anything in one of our tables, either vendors or invoices, whether we can see it or not. In our second view, because we have with check option, we can only update rows that we can see. And because we have a join, we are limited to updating in one table. Okay, in fact, both of them have that limitation. Between our commands, we have the keyword go. You'll learn more about this when we do scripting, but when you create views, which are database objects, they have to all be in a single batch, which is in a sense a single command. So where the code starts to the semicolon, that is a batch, that is also a single command. And you'll notice that we have go right after it and we have go before it. Okay, so these commands, SQL is server is a little bit picky, and for these commands to work, they have to be in their own batch. Okay, so I have two of them, and I'm going to go ahead and execute. And you may be wondering, well, where is my select information? When you create a view, the data won't be displayed unless you then select from the view. Okay, and where this is located. So these were created using the AP database. So if we expand AP and we expand views, and let me refresh this. You should be able to see it right inside views. And they look a lot like, your regular table. So you should see all of your columns in here. And basically you can select from them just like you select from a table. So you can kind of see how these come in handy for database administrators, especially if you have different users with different levels of authorization and access. You can totally control what they see. Now I'm going to move this down, and we're going to go ahead and select from our views. So I'm just doing a normal select. I'm going to select everything from the limited view and from the regular view. Okay, so this first one is the limited view. The second one is the regular view. And honestly, it's retrieving the exact same data. The difference in these two views is what you can update. So in the limited view, you can only update the rows you can see. And in the regular view, we can update anything in the invoices or the vendors table, even if we can't see them. Okay. Whereas the limited view, it only lets you update what you can see. Now I'm going to go ahead and move the closing comment down. So to create views, you're using the create view command. It is a database object. And if you wanted to delete a view, you have to use the drop command. And what we're going to do next is create a couple more views. So our boss would like us to create a view that shows unpaid invoice information. And you'll notice when you create a view, it just uses the column names from the original tables. Now, if you don't want it to use those column names, you can actually specify the column names that you want used. And that is what our next view is going to do. So I'm going to pause this and enter the data, and then we'll walk through what it does. All right, so we said the boss wanted a view for uh, unpaid invoice information. So we're going to call this view outstanding invoices. The columns in the view needed to be invoice, date, total, and balance. So these are a little different than the column names in the tables. So we have create view outstanding invoices, and then in parentheses, we are giving it new names for our columns. The data that we are going to use for the view is coming from our invoices table. And so we have invoice number, and that corresponds to invoice hash. We've got invoice date, which corresponds to date. We have invoice total, which in our view is just going to be called total. And then we have a calculation. We have the invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. And in our view, that is going to be called balance. Okay, all of this is coming from invoices, and we only want to retrieve rows that have a balance greater than 0. So we've got that little calculation in here. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and execute this. You'll notice that we did not have to put go before or after because this is the only command. Okay, so it's kind of in its own little batch anyway. Now I'm going to move the closing comment down. And it is always a good idea to just run a little select after you create a view, just so you can make sure that it looks okay. And of course, it always helps if you spell it right. Okay, and you can see that it did pick up the column names that we specified. We're going to move our closing comment down. And we've got one more that we're going to be creating. The boss wants us to create a new view called Vendors Southwest. It should pull in all columns from the vendors table, but we only want the states of California, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico included. So I'm just going to quick type this. We're using AP, And because that's its own little command, we're putting go after, create view, and we're calling it vendors Southwest as, and this is where we put the select. We're selecting everything from vendors. We do need a where clause because we do want to limit the rows to certain states. So we have to do where in for this, and then each state goes in single quotes. Okay, and that is the complete command. I just did the semicolon, so I'm going to put go in here. And then we might as well just code the select right in here. And we know right away if it worked or not. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And as you can see, it did work. So let's move our closing comment down.